Okay, I hope you all can see my screen. Yeah, okay. Very good afternoon to all of you. Actually, early evening now. Thank you for joining us on a Friday evening. First of all, we have this exciting session that we had planned for all of you. Uh, and for all of you who are new here, this is a part of our ongoing series. So we have been running this monitoring and evaluation series for the entire of quarter 1. And we conducted sessions on designing effective programs where we covered LFA, theory of change. We also had a session on strengthening data for M&E, for the M&E process. And we thought a good wrap up to this series would be, how is it that we can leverage all of this understanding to, strengthen our data and reporting, and especially understand what the funder expectations are, particularly CSR for today's session. So that's what we are going to be focusing on. But once again, happy to have you all here. In case any of you missed our previous sessions, we would be more than happy to share the recordings and resources. So please feel free to write to us at partnernetwork@satva.co.in. We'll just put this in an email and share it with you as well, this particular email ID. So you can write to us and we can share the resources for our previous sessions as well. So I think we'll be wrapping up the series, and just one or two quick announcements before I invite our speakers for the session to, take over. Once we have wrapped up our M&E series, it's coming to a close today, but we're super excited to share with you that our next series is going to be around marketing and communications. So this was another major ask from a lot of organizations out there saying, hey, we want to strengthen our monitoring, our marketing and communication specifically. So we have around 5 to 6 sessions, all relevant and important ones. So that's going to run for entire quarter 2. So we will be sharing more information about that shortly as well. And in line with that, also one quick announcement and more so like a development from our side that we want to share with you. Let me know if you can see my screen again. Maybe just a nod from Megha because I can see her. Okay, great. So I just wanted to let you all know that we have been conducting these events and webinars for the last 1.5 years, right? So there is this platform that we were also simultaneously building. It's called the India Partner Network Platform. And just want to take 2 minutes to introduce that to all of you today, because moving ahead, a lot of our events, actually all of the events that we conduct from the side of Satva, as in, most of these capacity building events and the resources that we upload are going to be routed through the platform. So just wanted to introduce you all to it because, tomorrow India Partner Network should ring a bell in case we share this through emails. So, we are having a lot of aspects as a part of our platform. So one, definitely events and resources, but a couple of other aspects are also going to be around news and updates. So anything that happens in the ecosystem today, at least we will aim to put it up on the platform as a news and update. So what you will have to do is come and register on the platform. And just to call it out that this is going to be a free platform. There is no sort of, registration fee that's required to sign up on the platform. So once you register, a lot of notifications that we keep updating on the platform will reach your inbox. A couple of other upcoming things. So we're going to have a lot of knowledge dissemination events and news and updates, but some interesting things coming up is also donor visibility, donor connects, and peer networking. So we are currently building on this, but a lot of the funding opportunities, funding collaborations, we also aim to put it up on our platform, wherein you all can come directly and apply for any funding opportunity. And we're going to make this process as transparent as possible. Happy to share more details, maybe through an email after this. And peer networking is also one major important area that we feel nonprofits have been sort of calling out. So that's also something coming soon, but just wanted to briefly let you all know about this. And, in case there's anything that you'd like to share at this point.
No, additionally, Ashwini, thank you for sharing this. And we're super excited for you all to go through this and kind of explore it and get back to us with your feedback. If you guys, so given this, this 1 hour, we want to use it for the session. I just don't want to go into the depth of it. happy to kind of set up another session just for this to help you understand the platform, how you can leverage this and so on. So we'll send you an email with the details post the session, but happy to also set up a separate session just for introducing the platform. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. And if required, we would also be happy to sort of have an orientation process just to take you all through the registration process on the platform. So I think we'll run a poll on an email after this. But coming back to our session today, I think I'll quickly introduce the speakers and then hand it over to Megha. So our first speaker is Megha. So she's an engagement manager at the corporate advisory team within Sattva. So yeah, so Megha, I mean, has closely worked with corporates, right, today to develop their CSR strategy. She's had experience in managing their CSR portfolios, advising them in making sound investments aligned to impact compliance. She has over 10 years of experience in the private and social sector. She's also previously she's completed the GenPact Social Impact Fellowship. She's worked with a lot of NGOs to drive high social impact. She's an engineer from Mumbai University. Just moving this, and has completed her MS engineering from the University of Southern California. She also has a certification in Lean Six Sigma and design thinking. So welcome, Megha. Happy to have you facilitate our session today. We also have Deepika Sharma with us today. She is a partner at Learning Links Foundation. She will be coming in a little later, but just want to introduce her as well quickly. So Deepika is an accomplished education technologist with a passion for deploying technology to enhance teaching and learning experiences, especially in underprivileged schools and communities. She has a background in education and expertise in instructional design and e-learning platforms. Deepika is also driven by potential of technology to transform education. She has over 37 years of experience, and she's worked with programs in India, Middle East, Southeast Asia, several multilateral agencies, right, like World Bank, Education Initiative, UNESCO, and so on. Her current role as a program director at Learning Links, she engages with a variety of programs for improving education outcomes through research, design, delivery mechanisms supported by tech in underserved schools and communities. So welcome to you as well, Deepika, and we're excited to hear you speak and share your experience in terms of reporting and data. So Megha, over to you. Just would be great if you can just nudge me to move next.
Sorry, if I may come in just before Megha. So just for the sake of participants as well, as we proceed with the session and you all have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll kind of unmute you so that you are able to raise your questions with Megha and Deepika and get that resolved. So just wanted to let that know. Please, please make this your session. As engaged you are, I think the better outcomes you'll be able to derive. Thank you so much.
We also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end for around half an hour. So it would be great if you all can raise your questions there as well. Over to you.
Thanks, Ashwini, for the introduction. And thank you all for joining in and coming to this webinar. Like Ashwini mentioned, I have worked with both corporates as well as NGOs. So what I will be doing is, rather than keep this discussion theoretical, I'll try to speak more from my experience. I think I, through the course of my career, have gotten a fair idea of what corporates want and what challenges NGOs face. So I'll try to keep this very experiential. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the agenda for today's webinar. So what we are trying to do is we'll try to understand what are CSR donor expectations from NGOs when it comes to data and reporting. So what we'll try to pack in this 1 hour is first try to understand their perspective. Why do they ask for so much information? And what are their internal factors that shape these expectations? Right? And we'll also try to understand what NGOs can do to meet these expectations. We also have a representative from Learning Links Foundation, whom Ashwini just introduced right now. Learning Links Foundation, of course, is a well-known NGO that has done very well with respect to monitoring and reporting, and they have also received appreciation from their corporate donors. So Deepika will also be, speaking about the best practices. What do they do in order to ensure timely and accurate reporting? And we'll also keep some time towards the end for Q&A. Next slide, please. So before we deep dive, couple of questions that you may have thought about. And if possible, please, raise your hand and you can unmute and, give your answers as well. I think the two questions that NGOs may have thought about is, why do CSR donors ask for frequent reports and updates about their projects? And secondly, do you see a difference in reporting expectations from corporate to corporate? So if you would like to, raise your hand and answer the question, that would be great. Yeah, I think Sonal Kulkarni has raised her hand.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Sonal.
Yeah, why do CSR donors ask for frequent reports and updates? Of course, it's the CSR mandate, the new under the section 135. And do you see a difference in reporting? Of course, it's becoming more stringent and they are requiring minute to minute details frequently.
Got it. Thanks, Sonal. Anyone else would like to raise their hand and answer? Yeah, I think Sridevi has raised her hand.
I think both Aarti and Sridevi have raised their hand. Aarti, one of you can go ahead.
Sridevi.
Please
Yeah,
go ahead.
please go ahead.
Did you want me to speak?
Donors are asking for reporting to track the progress, whether the NGO is going with the plan which they have given, and to track how the impact is getting achieved.
Great. Thanks, Sridevi. I think we can take a couple more comments.
Yeah. So I think for the difference in reporting, expectations from corporate to corporate, yes, there's a difference between, because I think each corporate has their own objectives and their own needs and their own measures of how they measure impact or what data they need for that. So yes, that is, and some require it monthly, some require it quarterly, whatever. So yes, there is a difference. There's difference, and also it also depends on what they are funding. So what they're looking for. So that's, I think, the reason why you have the difference in from one corporate to another.
Thanks, Aarti.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think as per CSR donors are mandated to submit the utilization certificates at the end of the financial year and also supported with the evidence documents. And as a result, it becomes very important for them to seek updates on where the project is periodically. And also for the, yes, there is a lot of difference, corporate to corporate in terms of somebody, asking every week reporting, somebody is asking, monthly or quarterly, and somebody not even bothered, ask anything. So at the end of the year, is coming back and asking utilization certificate of the project, that he or she has funded it. So yes, there is a lot of variation in that also.
Okay, thanks, Lokesh. Great. So I think we can go ahead. Can you go to the next slide, Ashwini? And thank you all for participating. I think it was good to hear from your experience as well. And I echo your thoughts as well. Next slide. So here are some standard reasons why corporates ask for so much information. And I think a few of the points you have already mentioned right now. So if you look at the standard reasons, I have listed 5 reasons here why corporates ask for regular updates. The most obvious one is, of course, for the program health, right? They have funded the project. So naturally, they want to understand what is the progress of that project. Are we going according to plan or not? Are we achieving what we had set out to achieve? Are there any delays in the project, or are there any risks that we can expect going forward? Do you have mitigation measures in place, etc. Right? So they want to get a sense of how the project is going, which is why they ask for so many reports. Then comes the big one, which is compliance. Now, from a financial perspective, the CSR funders have their own reporting obligations. They have to report how much funds they have allocated to a certain project, how much of it has been utilized, how much will go into the unspent account, what will be an ongoing project, etc. Right? And from a programmatic perspective also, they have to give the project status and they have to communicate this to all the stakeholders, whether it is their working group, their board, or their CSR committee. And as a result, they ask for all these reports. Other than that, learning and development as well. So all the updates that you give them in the reports, they use it to figure out if there is any way to improve the program in any way. And they are also using these reports for their own capacity building, because you must have noticed that a lot of people who are your point of contact in CSR are not actually from social sector. So they want to also improve their sectoral knowledge. They want to understand what are the best practices in CSR. So they are trying to learn from your experience as well, so that they can refine their thinking and support more strategic projects going forward. So in a way, you can say that they are using your reports to upskill themselves. Then comes the NGO due diligence. So if they have given you the funds, then they would like to assess your performance as well. They want to see your credibility. And all those big words like accountability, transparency, your capability, the ownership you're showing on the project. So when you share your regular reports, they are constantly analyzing all these parameters, and that will then help them in their decision making for future partnerships. So do they want to renew the partnership with you, or do they want to go in another direction? Right? And finally, the last one is impact measurement. So they want to see what is the SROI. So for all the money that they have spent, what difference have we created in the lives of the end beneficiaries? They also want to see impact communication, because they have responsibilities with respect to giving out the impact numbers to their board, to their committee. They also have to put up these numbers on their website, right? So these are the standard reasons why corporate donors ask for so much information. But like you confirmed, the intensity differs from corporate to corporate. As you just confirmed, a few minutes back, some ask for a lot of information and some not so much. They are just interested in utilization certificates. So what are the reasons that shape these expectations? So if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, the first is the motivation for CSR, right? So this goes all the way to the top. It goes to the leadership. So are they passionate about social work, or is this just a tick box exercise for them? Yes, at the end of the day, CSR is a compliance obligation for everyone. But we are seeing that more and more corporates now have a genuine interest in making a difference through their CSR funds. And then, yes, there are a few for whom it is a tick box exercise. So their attitude or their motivation for CSR shapes their involvement in the reporting process. And hence you see that there is a difference in the reporting expectations as well. Similarly, the CSR vision. Now, some have a clearly defined CSR strategy. Okay, they are very focused. They are not interested in doing hundreds of projects, and they set aside a huge chunk of their budget for flagship programs, where they focus on only 1 or 2 intervention areas. It could be education or it could be health. So if you happen to work on their flagship programs, then you can definitely expect more involvement from them, because these projects matter to them more than other projects. Flagship projects are those where they have only 1 or 2 focus areas, and 60 to 70% of the corporate's funds go towards these flagship programs. So if you are working on flagship programs, then definitely their involvement and their expectations will be higher. The third is, of course, the grant size. So if you are doing one-off projects with them with a smaller budget, you will see that they are a lot more relaxed about the reporting. However, if you are doing a big ticket project with them, then you should be ready for a lot more scrutiny. The next reason is in-house expertise on CSR. So if your corporate point of contact is from social sector, you will see that the conversation is very different compared to when the point of contact is, let's say, from HR or accounts or communications, right? So if you have a corporate POC, point of contact, who is from social sector, the discussion will be more about theory of change, about impact, about the bigger picture. On the other hand, if your point of contact is from accounts, then the reporting expectation is more towards utilization. It's more towards document submission. Have you given the invoices? Have you shown the bills? Have you shown the vendor quotations? Right? And similarly, if your point of contact is from communications, you will see that the focus is more on getting an impact narrative. Whether you have testimonials from the end beneficiaries, do you have case studies, do you have success stories to share? Yeah, so these are the reasons why the reporting expectations would differ based on the CSR expertise of the people you are in touch with. And finally, you have historical experiences with NGOs. And this is a very big factor, because if your corporate has had past experience with NGO that has been less than ideal, then you will see that the new NGOs will also bear the brunt of it. So for example, we had worked with a corporate that once had an NGO partner that showed some integrity issues. So of course, they didn't continue working with them, but the new NGOs that they onboarded, they were put under a lot of scrutiny. They had to give a lot of frequent reports. They had to do a lot more governance calls. Yeah. So all these factors shape the expectations of the CSR donors. And we need to accept that, and we need to tailor our work accordingly. Also, there is a lot going on in the background that we may not be aware of. For example, if you get a 1 crore grant from some corporate, the reality is that maybe the corporate is made up of 5 different entities. So there are 5 different companies there, each of which has its own CSR obligation. So what you got as a 1 crore grant is possibly 20 lakhs from 5 different entities of that corporate. So it means that when you give the utilization details for that 1 crore, it has to be reconciled by all the entities separately. Each entity has its own statutory reporting. They have their own separate board meetings for which separate board notes have to be drafted. And if by chance you are not able to complete utilization on time, then your point of contact is in distress because there are 5 entities following up with him for the numbers. Yeah. So these are the reasons behind their expectations and why you see a difference from corporate to corporate in terms of data and reporting expectations. So hopefully over the next few minutes, we can talk about what funders expect and what NGOs should do to meet those expectations. Can we go to the next slide? Again, I would request you to, some of you to raise your hand and unmute yourself and, answer this question. What are the challenges you are facing when it comes to meeting CSR donors' reporting expectations? It would be good to hear from your experiences and see if we can address any of this in our webinar today. Yes, Shanaz. Yeah,
Last
please.
minute data scrutiny, not clearing it beforehand.
Okay, not clearing things beforehand. Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Yes, please.
One of the challenges what I have faced is the donor will be giving us a specific timeline to give the update, either monthly or quarterly, and that is getting a little bit delayed. So I just want to be on time, so that is and I'm unable to make make it up. So that is one of the challenges I face.
Okay, thank you, Sridevi. Yeah, I think we have 4 more people.
Okay, so one of the challenges that we are facing with the new partners, like the new corporate donors, like when the agreement is done and when we begin the project, at that time, initially there is like a good amount of delay in their response in terms of what is the reporting formats, what are the reporting cadences. So maybe well after 4-5 months, maybe after some time that they are in pressure of getting reports from us, at that time they would give. And by the time, the project has already started. So it gets a little difficult to then, provide. If we will get it initially right at the beginning, it is easier. But many times it happens that we get those things much later. So that is a challenge. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anusia. Someone would like to go? I think there are 5 other hands,
Yeah,
but
I'll
maybe we can
speak.
take 2, 3. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we face is, last minute request. Yeah, send this in 30 minutes. Send us this information in 30 minutes. Not realizing that we may or may not have that information in 30 minutes, or the person at our end is not there, or whatever the reasons may be. For example, in education, we're in the education sector. Sometimes it's a school thing. We need it from teachers. It's on a Saturday. It's on a Sunday. I mean, we can't really get this information at this lightning speed, right? Schools and educational institutions don't tend to work on a 24/7 basis. So that is one of the challenges that we face. The second is, I think, clearly setting up those expectations or those reporting structures upfront, or the parameters at least, right? Like what format do you want it in? Is it a narrative, or is it a numerical, or what, quantitative or qualitative? That really has to be clear. And the third thing that we've also faced is when the CSR team at the corporate changes, then their expectations change midway, and it's not always communicated back to the NGO, and it's just kind of said, okay, now we want it in this format. So these are sort of the 3 things that I would, we have faced.
Okay, thanks, Aarti. I think maybe we can take 1 more.
Shall I?
Yes.
Yeah. So right now, the challenge which we are facing, we have a project of, hospice center, and we were just filling this dashboard, impact dashboard for one of our CSR grant. And what I found was that when I was filling the social development goals, where all the values are automatically calculated and all that. So it was really a concern that we were not falling in any aims or objectives of the social development goals. And we come under universal health coverage, and it was weirdly we were not falling in any of that thing. So that was a concern for us,
Okay, thanks, Neha.
because impact is being calculated automatically, which kahin na kahin it hides our work, what we are exactly doing in the community.
Got it. Okay. Ashwini, I think we can go to the next slide. Thank you everyone for sharing your experiences. It is very helpful. So we'll see if we can address any of these challenges in the next few slides. Next slide. Yeah. So what we can do is we can look at the entire life cycle of a project. What are the different stages in a project? And then at each stage, what are the expectations that a corporate has? So even though project reporting happens from the time the project starts to the time it ends, but you have to lay down the foundation for the reporting process in the proposal stage itself. Now, proposal stage is where you are sharing the proposal with the corporate, you are having meetings with them, you are pitching your project to them. At this stage itself, it is important to have your LFA or your logical framework approach. And I'm sure you are all aware of it. What we need to do is we have to clearly call out our activities, our outputs, outcomes, and what impact we are going to create over a period of time. The idea is to show the logical flow of your project. Now, one mistake that a few NGOs make is that they focus too much on the activities and not on the outcomes or on the bigger picture. So I'll just give you an example that my colleague shared. She was working with a corporate whose NGO partner has done a very good job of building toilets in some location in North India. However, the water supply problem there has not been resolved for a long time because of many factors. So now you have a situation where there are toilets, but there is no water supply. So they are completely unusable. So the NGO may have completed their target of building X number of toilets, but there is no impact because the lives of people living in that location have not changed. Right? And corporates are interested in a narrative. They are interested in the storyline, in the big picture, as they say. So here your activity is building toilets, but your output should be a functioning toilet. Outcome would be adoption of health and hygiene practices. Maybe the attendance of girl child increases and there is a drop in absenteeism. This is, as you know, girls are not sent to schools for this reason, especially adolescent girls. And the impact created is improved health. Maybe there is a drop in instances of diarrhea. There's also, an improvement in terms of inclusivity because now girls can attend school. If the toilets that you built are disabled friendly, then those kids can also attend school. So you're also pushing for inclusivity. So this flow has to be shown in the LFA in the proposal stage itself. You will have indicators that will show the success of your project. You should not leave it vague. You should have numbers and data with you. There should be proper means of verification. What proof are you going to show for each of these metrics? There will be pictures, videos, there will be documents that you can submit as proof. So the idea is to have the evidence also in place. You have to call out all the risks and assumptions. I think until recently in every LFA, we saw COVID lockdown as a risk. So in case there is a lockdown, then all the activities will be suspended or the project will be put on hold, right? So of course, this webinar is not to discuss how to make an LFA, rather to discuss why CSR donors want it. They may not even know the term LFA, but when you give an LFA to them and when you show the logical flow of activities to output, to outcome, to impact, they see that you have a foolproof plan in place. They can see that you have thought this through and you're not just making vague statements and you're not speaking in thin air. They can also see the experience you have because of which you were able to build this LFA. And this inspires confidence in them and makes a strong case for you in the proposal stage. But more importantly, it lays down the foundation for all future reporting. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, let's assume that everything went well and the corporate and you have decided to work together and you are now signing the MOU. So this stage is called the onboarding stage, where the project may not have started on the ground, but this is the phase where you have to align with the corporate on the M&E framework. This is your reference document for the rest of the project. It tells you everything you need to do throughout the project in terms of reporting. So you can consider it as your SOP, right? So you have to identify the metrics that you will report on. And for this, you will use your LFA as the Bible. So you detail out all the metrics in your M&E framework. Is it going to be number of toilets built, number of hand washing stations built, improvement in attendance of girl child, improvement in health indicators? So list all the metrics that you need. And then write the baseline value of each indicator and what is the target for each metric. So it is good to have quarter-wise targets. So I will achieve so much by Q1, so much by Q2, etc. then it is very important to assign responsibility to someone for data collection. So overall, it is the program officer. Overall, it is the program officer who takes responsibility for all this data collection. It's also important to assign a reviewer who could be the program manager. So the program manager can do a sample check once in a quarter to ensure that everything is in place and the data is accurate. So there has to be some form of data validation as well. In this onboarding stage, you also have to call out the frequency at which you will collect the data for each metric. Is it going to be fortnightly, monthly, or quarterly? Use your logic to define what should be the right frequency. And state the frequency of reports as well. Do they expect monthly report from you? Do they want quarterly report from you? And align on the template as well. Do they want a Word document? Do they want a PDF? Do they want a presentation? So all of this has to be decided in the onboarding stage itself. How you will collect the data. Now, for example, if you have to measure how usable the toilets are, then you need to do an FGD with the students, or you need to do an FGD with the staff. You could also do a simple document review if you want to check the attendance of the girls. If you want to see the progress of toilet construction, then you get pictures and videos, etc. Right? So all of this has to be a part of your M&E framework right at the onboarding stage. You also have to align with the corporate on where you plan to store this data. Are you going to take it all on an Excel form, Excel sheet, or are you going to use some app like mForm, in case you have internet access on the ground? Then there are some NGOs that like to use platforms like Comcare. And then there are some corporates who prefer their own platforms. So it is very important in the onboarding stage itself to align on these things. Another good practice is to have a common folder shared between the corporate and the NGO where you upload all the documents. And the corporate will be able to access these documents throughout the duration of the project. Have clear headings and dates. So the corporate does not have to wait for your quarterly report in case they wish to access some document. And you should also make it a point to set up regular calls with the corporate. This is to generally give an update on the project. So in the M&E framework, you have to state the frequency of these calls. Ideally, you should do one call maybe for 30 minutes, and it's okay even if it is virtually. The idea is to use it as an opportunity to strengthen your relationship and to have trust and open communication channels and a sense of partnership with the corporate. So even though this seems like a lot of work, even before the project has begun, it is the most important thing you can do. And most of the challenges that you said, where someone said things are not cleared beforehand, specific timeline is not given, there are last minute requests, etc. So these challenges hopefully can be eliminated if you have a clear M&E framework that you have aligned on, because it sets the tone for all your monitoring and reporting requirements for the year. It puts you and the corporate on the same page with respect to what you're going to report, at what frequency, in what form, what documents you will share. Everything is covered in the M&E framework itself. So there can be no confusion later on. I think a lot of challenges that are faced by NGOs in terms of reporting are mainly because this alignment is not done in the onboarding stage itself. So M&E framework, of course, you must have used, where it is a simple Excel sheet where you list down all the metrics in one column, list down the baseline number, list down the targets for each quarter, who is responsible to collect that data, who is responsible to validate that data, what format you will collect it in, where will you store it, and how often you will have governance calls with the corporate, and how often will you give reports to them and in what format. So if you align this with the corporate in the onboarding stage itself, it gives them the confidence that all monitoring and reporting will be conducted in a consistent and systematic manner. Can you go to the next slide, Ashwini? Next slide, Ashwini. I think it has not changed for me.
Hi, Mika, just have changed it.
Okay, yeah, now it has changed. Yeah. Now, during the project, this is when the actual reporting happens. But whatever you need to do is already in the framework. So the framework tells you everything, right? From what data is to be collected, who will collect, in what form, and what to report, when to report, etc. So you now have to basically follow the M&E framework. Now, there are three things that corporate look for. The first is governance call that I just talked about. And like I said, it would be good to do at least a 30-minute call virtually with the corporate once a month. Here, you're not submitting any report, but it is good to be in touch and have periodic updates of the project. What have you achieved? What are the risks? Are there any delays, etc. Right? So don't wait for the quarterly report to communicate these things. Do it at the earliest in the governance sync itself. The second is regular programmatic report. Again, everything here now will be according to the framework you have created. So what metrics to report, who will do it, how you will collect it, in what format, etc. Everything is already there in the framework. So now you have to talk about what targets you have achieved. Qualitatively, you have to talk about, is your project on track? And what are the risks that you see in the project? You should also analyze the data and share your insights and have justification for everything. For example, if 10 toilets were to be built, but you have built only 6, what is the reason? Maybe it was the rainy season and so the construction slowed down. But it is important to mention these things in your quarterly report on the program. If you have done any events, if you have done any employee volunteering activities, then those details also need to be included in the report. And when it comes to financial reporting, you have to talk about what is the tranche payment that you received from the corporate, how much have you utilized, are you on track to utilizing everything on time, what is the utilization certificate, have you received it or not, and are there any repurposing or reallocation requests? If there are, then you have to give a clear justification for that as well. It's important to keep record of all the invoices, bills, vendor quotations. This will be useful when the corporate has its audit, and at that time they may come to you with all these requests. So if you do not have all these documents at that point, it will be a little difficult for the corporate as well. Yeah, so these are the three steps that need to take place throughout the course of the project, and your timeliness and transparency will show your accountability to the corporate. Next slide, please. Now, this is the project closure phase. Now, when the project closes, corporates want a closure report that shows the change. So here you should talk about the baseline endline assessment. Show what change you have created on the ground. You analyze your own performance. What had you planned in the beginning of the project? And have you achieved everything according to the plan? If not, what are the reasons? Did you not anticipate these reasons when you were starting the project? On the other hand, if you have achieved the goals, then what are the lessons learned? How can you make your program better? What are the improvement areas? Another thing that corporates want to know is, what is your sustainability plan? So once you exit the project, what happens to the community that has come to depend on you? Have you built their capacity to carry on the good work? Especially this is important in case of behavioral change program, where you need someone to keep the momentum going. So it's very important in your closure report to talk about the sustainability plan for the community. And finally, of course, they want the impact narrative. So what is the change that has been seen on the ground? You have to share pictures, videos, testimonials of all the stakeholders. You can speak to the beneficiaries and talk about their satisfaction level with the project as well. So overall, corporates want a summary of the project, how the community has received the project, how has the NGO team performed, and how will the good work be continued in case of the exit of the NGO. So from proposal stage to project closure stage, these are the points that corporates look for to see whether they are on track, to see whether you're delivering the impact that you had promised, and whether the CSR objectives of the corporate are being met or not. Next slide. So I would like to end with a good practice for all NGOs, which is that funders also expect regular touch points with the NGOs beyond project reporting. So what you see in green here is the project life cycle. And whatever is written in purple, these are the points that we just discussed. This is what the corporates expect in terms of reporting. And what you see in yellow, these are the touch points beyond project reporting. So if there are any organizational changes, it should be informed to the corporate. You should invite them for field visits so that they can see the ground realities as well. You should create employee volunteering opportunities for them. Your management should try to meet their CSR team on a regular basis as a relationship building exercise. And you should acknowledge their contribution on your website or on your social media. If there are any major achievements in your organization, if you have published some paper or if there has been a nice news article about you, you have to share it with the corporate as well. So the idea is to have conversations not just related to the project, but also focusing on building a relationship and having open communication channels so that the corporate has a good idea about the NGO beyond the project. In case the project does not go according to plan for whatever reason, the corporate still knows about your good work from other things, and the benefit of the doubt can be given to you in the renewal stage as well. So very important to have regular communication that goes beyond reporting with the corporates. So these are some of the steps that corporates expect from NGO partners. So as you can see, it's all very prep oriented. It's all about alignment between the NGO and the corporate. All these steps are irrespective of how big the NGO is, irrespective of the type of project, duration of the project, budget of the project. These are all common steps that all NGOs must take. And above all, it's very important to have a more outcome-oriented approach. Next slide. I would actually like to hand it over to Ashwini now, to Deepika now, from Learning Links Foundation to come in and share her views. So what are Learning Links Foundation's internal processes? What are their best practices that she can suggest? What do they do in order to ensure timely and accurate reporting? And how do they meet their CSR expectations? So I'll hand it over to you, Ashwini, Deepika.
Thank you, Megha. Hello, everyone, and a very good evening. Very excited to be sharing some of our experiences on donor reporting, how we have streamlined our processes and embraced reporting as a two-way communication between us and the donors. I know it becomes very tiresome. There are a lot of demands, there are a lot of, and sometimes the expectation and an untimely request can create a little bit of a discordant note. But we see this as an opportunity to empower our donors, because they obviously have made this request since they need to communicate this to somebody else. And we always take this learning back into the project and say, look, they requested for a video. We better keep a collection of videos from the program activities ready for them. They have asked us for certain figures, certain photographs. We must always have those ready with us. So these learnings are what we have taken in, and over a period of time, there is so much clarity and there is oneness in our thinking across projects that we do in the organization. And that is to build reporting structures, build the impact framework on which we will report out to the funder right at the beginning. And if I think Megha mentioned, sometimes they may not even be aware of these terms. They're like an LFE or an logical outcome framework, whatever we want to call it. But we take it upon ourselves to sort of educate them in the calls that we have before the project is taken to the ground. And we explain to them what each thing means, and what is our input going to be, how is it going to result in an immediate output and then an outcome, and how will we report it out. So from these, they have their expectations, but we try to meet those by ourselves asking for now meetings. So we have financial reporting. Donors may say that we want to get a quarterly report on finances. We want to close utilization and see how much spend has happened over a quarter. But within our organization, we like to close it every month. And we put ourselves a deadline of 8th to 10th of the next month, that previous month's expenses have to be put into tally, have to be put into the platform that we are using. And every project in the organization will be doing it, whether or not we report it out to the donor monthly. Some donors want it monthly, but we want to, and so it makes it easier for us. Similarly for reports, some donors will want quarterly reports. They don't necessarily want a report from us every month. But internally, we create monthly reports. We create our own templates. So creating reports, the periodicity is important. Whether or not donors ask for that periodicity, even for better control within the organization, it's just nice to have a report, to have everybody sit around that report and see what is working, what is not working, what we need to improve. And so when we go to the donor at that quarterly stage with a report and a slightly longer narrative, obviously every month there is not a long narrative. The monthly report formats are slightly more tight, more to do with figures, for something built, 5 something procured, so many sessions held. But over a period of 3 months, we are able to build a narrative. So when we built this, or when we procured this, so many people were trained, and after training, this is the effect we are seeing in the classrooms. So the longer duration reports become slightly more, narration type. And that is what we want. We want to see that kind of narrative going out to the donors. The other important aspect of reporting is that sometimes donors do not, we send them the report, but they don't ask us to come on a meeting. They keep receiving the reports, they'll acknowledge it over an email, but we've taken it upon ourselves to say, we have sent you a report and we would like to have a call to discuss it. And during the call, it's again an opportunity for us to present our case and our program and show them what we are doing. And then they start, and it gets them thinking. And I think this has been appreciated by a lot of donors who didn't do this to begin with. And we said, no, it's like we are creating this communication channel. We are treating reporting as a communication channel. So what do we report out on? As Megha mentioned, all our projects very clearly have, however small the project, we make our framework, our outcome framework, and it clearly puts out indicators that we will measure or track right through the year. Some we will track monthly, some we will track quarterly and report out quarterly, some we will track over the year, baseline end line over the year, but number of sessions held every month, every week. So we put that periodicity, we put the communication periodicity. This will feature in our reports monthly, this will feature in our reports quarterly. These are not cast in stone, these documents. Of course, they can change. If we feel we had overcommitted, sometimes by putting something as monthly reporting, can always have a conversation and people are willing to listen and say, okay, report it out quarterly if this is not happening. Or you just say, did not happen this month. Again, being honest. being transparent is a characteristic that takes us a long way. And we believe that we can have this honest conversation with our donors. Not achieving a target is not a crime. We are trying. There are so many reasons why that target was not achieved. But having a conversation around that is very important. At the end of the year, when we sit with the annual report and you see the targets have not been achieved, it comes as a bit of a shock to everyone. But putting it through the year in our conversations, and therefore multiple levels, multiple channels of conversation, open conversations through reports is very important. Apart from these reports, the templates can come from donors. Sometimes some donors give us templates. Some donors don't give us templates. They'll say, use your template, whatever you want to report out on. And so we create a template. Again, not cast in stone. Donors, once they see a template, they say, no, could we just also add this? Could we add this kind of a success story? Could we add that kind of a photograph? Yes, you can, we can, let's do it. So these things evolve as the course of the project goes, but of course it should not change every month. It should not be changing after a report goes out to the donor, changes are requested. Initially, some adjustment period, and we like to then settle with a template. What happens at our end then? Who is looking at these templates? Let's say I'm communicating with the donor, but I have a team of 60 people on the project. Now, who's going to give me these reports? I cannot make them all alone. I don't go to the field every day. I don't go to every classroom every day. So training our teams on what reporting requirements are is a key factor very early on in the project, making them understand that this is a requirement. So the key project indicators on which they have to report, which they have to track, is made known to them, not at the end of the project year, but in the beginning of the year when we are starting out the project. I'm trying not to use the acronym SMART, but we must have SMART indicators because, sometimes it's very cliche. So they have to be very specific, as small as possible, easy to measure, achievable. So starting from the number of sessions to the quality of sessions, which becomes a bit more qualitative. And that has to show with a different set of indicators. In a classroom, for instance, we design all these measurable indicators. So the smaller, the better. It's achievable. You can show it every month, a little movement. And of course, it has to be time bound. We cannot say that, we started doing this in the beginning of the project. We are still doing it at the end of the project. It has to sort of give some outcome, some impact at some point. Sustainability is a very important factor. And going forward, all corporates are going to, I think, demand it. They already are. But how do they make their projects sustainable? Because after all, that is why the funds are being spent. They want to see this change that is being created to stay that way, not disappear when we leave the project. So the sustainability elements of the project have to be identified right in the beginning when we are having these initial conversations with the funders. For instance, they'll suppose we say we want to create teacher champions or we want to create community champions. They will come up and they may question us and say, why do you need a teacher champion? I mean, what are you investing in the teacher champion for? Show them 5 years hence, 3 years hence, when we exit the program. This is the teacher champion that's going to hold the elements of the program together when I'm not there, you are not there. And this is how the program will run on sort of auto mode with her or his guidance. So, and every now and then to report out on those sustainable elements in the donor reports is great because you keep their attention to it. They know you are thinking about sustainability as much as they are. And we are, and all of us feel that projects need to be sustainable. So may as well communicate it, may as well find ways in which we get the donor buy-in on that. Where should these reports, etc., be sent? How? So there are systems that donors will say, we have our own systems. Can you please use our system, upload it there? At Learning Links Foundation, we have our own technology platform that's hosted on Salesforce. So all the data gets accumulated there, and we can create donor accounts. Again, as Megha mentioned, it's good to have them involved, give them this access and say, you can access this whenever you want. You don't have to write into us. This is your account. You can use it. These are your reports. The past reports, the future reports will also be put up here. And monthly closures, monthly reports, quarterly narratives, and then of course the annual narrative, baseline reports. If we have done capacity enhancement of any of the beneficiaries, those reports. If we have bought some equipment for the school, the usage, the training provided with that, a report on that. So because auditors will demand it, donors, auditors will audit our accounts, they will audit their accounts, they'll say, how do we know? How do we know this is being used? What is this? Was it installed? So photographs as proofs, training report as proof, attendance as proof. We've learned this over a period of time, and all of this gets cataloged. Without this, we do not close a training report. These are requirements. And therefore, as we go along, we are picking this up and making it mandatory in all our projects. So the training team knows these are my requirements. The program implementation team knows these are my requirements. I'm supposed to upload so many photos. I'm supposed to showcase so many activities in this manner so that it can go into reports. Not everybody in the team can write reports, but get the raw data from them because that's their voice from the ground. As we see it, we feel it is important to amplify that voice. We can change the language. We can, make it more board-like for the donor because they will be talking to their boards about it. But we get the whole project team involved in it. Whenever there are, let's say, third-party assessment agencies involved, they are all very good in their own rights, but they may not have the specialization that we have designed in the project. So to communicate to them clearly on what is expected of this project and what should they help the donor measure is very important. Otherwise, I have seen in my experience, there can be a wide gap between what is happening on the ground. Good is happening, but is not reported out by a third-party agency due to this lack of communication. So this, it's a good thing to have, and again, it's going to be mandated more and more in the future. There will be third-party evaluations happening for projects and to capture the impact on the ground. I'm quickly going to run through two different types of case studies so that we know what kind of different reporting requirements there may be. One of them is an infrastructure project. Now, infrastructure project is full of all kinds of documentations that all of us may not understand. Things like what is an e-way bill, what is a goods return note, and what is an acknowledgement receipt from the school where or the community where something was installed. So it's good if we have somebody from the admin put on the project while this is happening. Also, infrastructure projects are time bound, shorter time bound than, let's say, or a skill building or a teacher training or a learning enhancement project. So they will guide us. The finance team in every organization and the admin teams will guide us because auditors, the funders have auditory requirements. The auditors are going to ask us, did you vet 3 vendors? What? Why do I need to vet 3 vendors? No, that was a requirement. So all of these requirements, we've learned it now because we come from the education background. How did we know that this was to happen? But it has to be learned. And all the completion letters. So once it's installed, not enough. You need to get a sign off. You need to get work completion letters. You need to get testimonials. You need to get photographs. And you need, and this is all part of compliance. And to the donor, you need to show how it is being used. You install this, it is being used, much as the toilet case that Megha had mentioned. So even if we are putting a smart board, who's using it, what's happening, and how many sessions have been conducted. So all of that, and we will make it clear to the donor. We will watch this for 3 months for you, for 6 months. We'll handhold the team for 6 months and keep reporting out. Take the donors for visits. They understand true impact when they are on a visit with us. And they understand challenges as much as the effort that is being put in to mitigate those challenges. Things really work well when donors come onto the field with us. And if the field visit is in many cases an eye-opener for the donors. And also for these infrastructure projects, they should go and see what is actually happening instead of just pictures. Encourage somebody from the donor organization to go and have a look, what it looks like, because that really gives them that feeling in a village school, a smart board, children interacting, that whole feeling is very different. The story comes alive. The other kind of project reporting that I'm going to speak about is our general education projects. We have 10 schools in this project. Each school in different geography, very, very different from each other. There is a lot of heterogeneity. So the donor, we started with this donor with no requirements. Other than an annual report, we don't have any requirements. And we decided, no, I think the donor needs to be informed a little more. So we started asking all our school teams to send in monthly reports, because we also wanted a better control on these, and then went on to send quarterly reports to the donor, and of course the annual assessment reports that we share with them. And they are really happy. They have now asked us to have weekly calls with them. So on a weekly call, every Wednesday in the evening, 1 hour is set aside, and we have a invite sent out for the whole year. Sometimes it gets cancelled, and that's okay. But all of us have set our time aside because we have conversations with the donor. It's enlightening for them. It's great for us. We can bring up our challenges without putting it in a report necessarily. They see what we are doing. We minute these meetings. And this is happening in a lot of our projects. All these meetings are minuted. The following week, when we come again for the meeting, the minutes are pulled up because they should have been updated over the course of the week with action points having been taken. And that will be pulled up, that will be presented to them informally. It can be just in the form of a Word document or an Excel sheet. It doesn't have to be a formal presentation. Actually, it is never a formal presentation. It's more congenial than that. And we just pull it up and say, this was done, this is still work in progress. This week, we would like to discuss this. At our end, before that Wednesday evening, on a Tuesday evening, we huddle together and say, what is it that we want to speak? Never go unprepared to speak with the donor. So this is something we have learned. No matter how casual the meeting sounds, no matter how informal, it's always good to prepare your thoughts before putting it across to the donor. And all of these, in addition to the formal reports that we send, has created a great open system of communication on most of our projects. Of course, people pick up phones also and discuss if there is an issue, but this is what we have put as a system. And all the new projects for the last 2-3 years, the definition of our indicators, the periodicity of reporting, the logic framework, why we are doing, how we are doing, what we are doing, is clearly laid out. Some donors understand it. To some, we have to explain. We do keep room for improvements, their suggestions. we can't say we are giving you a report and you're not supposed to suggest. No, that's not on. They will suggest and we take it in. But yes, there are some donors who suggest like too many changes, and then, it does get a little bit of into the way of keeping consistency in our reporting and communication, but we have to handle that on a case-to-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Over
Deepika.
to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Megha, to you as well. I think I know we're a little over time to all the participants. Sorry about that, but super enriching session. I think we can take in, there are some questions that have come in. So I could just read it out loud, and Megha, you all could come in here. So there's one by Rijuta. She says, we usually report input and output indicators on quarterly basis, whereas outcomes are reported annually. So she just wanted to know if this is a good reporting structure.
Yeah. So, Rijuta, it completely depends on the type of project, but as long as you have aligned with your corporate on the reporting frequency, it should be fine. But mostly you should just use your logic to, determine what kind of frequency should be there for reporting. And then you should explain that logic to the corporate as well. Now, for example, if it is an education project, then reporting on attendance on a monthly basis makes sense. But when it comes to learning outcomes, even at the end of 1 year, you're not going to see a lot of change in terms of student learning outcomes. So, you have to use your logic to understand what needs to be reported on what frequency, and it would be best if you could convince your corporate of that as well. However, if the corporate needs, a report on a particular frequency, then you might as well go with that.
Thanks, Megha. Rijita, does that answer your question? In case there's any follow-up question, please feel free to raise your hand and ask. Okay, just moving on as well to Umakant. So I think he has a couple of questions. One of the biggest asks from a corporate is transparency. What are the best practices? That's one. Do you just want me to read all of them, Megha, or do you want to take it one by one?
Yeah, you can read all of them.
So one is in terms of the biggest ask from a corporate is transparency, and what are the best practices for that? How to maintain consistency in understanding of terms between NGO and corporate. Third one's on how can we help corporates to look at an NGO as a partner and not a vendor?
Right. Okay, so the first part about transparency, like I mentioned in my during project slide, which is about reporting on a project when it is on. The important things are to do timely and accurate reporting of all your project activities. Take them on field visits so that they can also see the ground realities, and they can, see they can see that what you are mentioning in your report is also true on ground. So they will be able to make that match. Like I said, very important practice to have a folder, a common folder where you keep all your documents, and the corporate will be able to access that folder at any time, and they will be able to see the bills, the invoices, which makes them, gives them that sort of relief that, okay, even if we don't, see these documents on a regular basis, we know that it's all being uploaded here, and they get that sense of satisfaction that, there is a lot of transparency from your side. And other than that, means of verification, which you had identified in your LFA. So if you have all the, documents, pictures, videos, if you have all of it, then automatically the, corporates feel that you are transparent in your dealings. When it comes to how can we help corporates to look at an NGO as a partner and not a vendor? I think the first thing, of course, is to ensure that you carry out your project well, to ensure that all the things that you promised in the beginning of the project have been completed by the end of the project. So that is, of course, of the utmost importance. But like I said in my last slide, along with getting the project done also, it is important to have regular touch points with the NGO and the corporate to keep telling them about various updates within your organization, if there are any organizational changes, if there are any events that you are doing, if there are any papers you have published, any achievements that have come out in the media, keep sharing these things with them, and then they will not look at you as just someone who is doing their project, but they look at you as an entire, a different entity in that case. But of course, the first and the most important thing is to get the project done according to the points that you had promised in the beginning of the proposal stage itself. And about your second question on maintaining consistency, I think it all goes back to the onboarding stage where you create that monitoring and evaluation framework, because that is where you spend a lot of time with the corporate in finalizing what you are going to report throughout the course of the project. So like I said, that is the most important stage for you when it comes to reporting and with respect to data. So if you can have that monitoring and evaluation framework in place at the beginning of the project itself, and then you stick to it throughout the project, then you will be maintaining consistency in terms of all monitoring and evaluation. Does that answer your question?
Umakant, feel free to again raise your hand. Yeah, in case of any follow-up. I think there's one by Cheshtha. She's asking how to decide the length of the report if an NGO is involved in a lot of activities when developing a generic report for all the donors.
Again, this comes back to the onboarding stage where you are aligning with the corporate in terms of what you are going to report, right? And again, that goes back to what LFA you created. So in the LFA, you have mentioned all the activities that you are going to do. And if you have it in your LFA, it is important to mention it in your report as well. Because LFA is what you showed in the proposal stage, then it is important that in the reporting stage also you talk about it and you talk about what progress you did on all those activities. So again, it comes back to what you aligned with the corporate on in the onboarding stage, where you decided what kind of report I'm going to share. Is it a PDF? Is it a Word document? Is it a PPT? And what is the content that you are going to share on a regular basis?
Thanks, Megha. Hope that answered your question, Cheshtha. I think these are the questions we have on chat so far. But yeah, just opening the floor for questions as well, maybe just a couple of more minutes. Yeah, in case anyone has any questions, can raise your hand.
I think Mr. Prakash has raised his hand. You can go ahead and speak.
Yeah. See, I have a couple of questions regarding the NGO due diligences. See, many of the donors are coming up with the different templates for their utilization certificate purpose. While CA Institute also has given their template for the UC purpose only. So which one we need to follow? Why the donors are not following the CA Institute template? That is one thing. Because many times what is happening, donors are seeking the UC in the CA Institute format also, as well as their own template also, which is given by their own corporate team and all. So it is becoming very quite difficult for the NGOs to prepare the UCs in both the formats. So why can't corporates or NGOs can have one template for the UC purpose for different kinds of the projects? This is one thing. And the second one is most of the donors are asking to open a separate bank account for their project. Right. So if a company, if an NGO is having for about 10-15 different projects and the different donors, they cannot have the 15 bank accounts with them, right? It is difficult for them to to handle all those 15 accounts. Bank accounts. That is so we I need some kind of insight on this. And the third one is most of the donors, most of the corporate donors are raising the request of providing the top donors details and the projects for which they have funded, and what is the period of the project and how much they have provided, how much they have donated during this particular period, and all those kinds of details they are asking. But while in the MOUs which NGOs have signed with the donors, it says that all the data should be maintained confidentially and all those things. So here, I think NGOs are stuck, are they are in confusion whether this data is to be provided to the third parties or not. So I just need answers for these things.
So your first question was about
the UC template.
UC template. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, this is something that needs to be aligned with the NGO and between the NGO and the corporate at the onboarding stage itself. If they are giving you a template, then it is best to have this discussion at the onboarding stage. And if it is something that you cannot, fulfill, then it is good to talk about it in the onboarding stage itself. But ideally, what corporates want is an unaudited utilization certificate throughout, maybe on a quarterly basis or so. And once you have completed maybe 80% of utilization of the previous tranche amount, then you raise the next tranche request. And at the end of the project, or maybe at the end of the year, you give a CA certified utilization certificate. So in that case, again, it would depend on your CA and what kind of template they are using. So good to, discuss these things at the onboarding stage itself. I don't think, at least in my experience, a lot of corporates don't really have templates for this, and they are happy to accept the CA certified utilization certificates that the NGOs give. So that was one. With respect to the different bank accounts also, it is not something that is sustainable, right? Because as the NGO's annual receipts increases, it is just not possible to have different bank accounts for different projects. So usually even the bigger corporates, they just take the bank account details of the NGO and they transfer, whether it is 1 crore to 3 crore to even 10 crore to one bank account. So this is, this practice that you're mentioning of different bank accounts for different projects seems out of the ordinary. This is not the, general norm. So that was the answer to your second question. And the third one is about donors asking for top donor details. Now, this is not something that you can avoid because it's just like a job interview, right? Where after the interview, there is a background check done. So similarly here, the corporate will be partnering with the NGO at least for a period of 1 year, or sometimes there is also a 3-year commitment. So I think they are well within their rights to ask who are the other donors that are funding you, what is the fund they have given you. So it is basically a reference check. And it is okay to give these details because partners also, the corporates also have to reveal these details anyway as a part of their CSR disclosure, as a part of their reporting. So this is not some super confidential information that you need to hide. Of course, they are not asking you for specific project details or, which were the team members, etc. So those details, of course, you don't need to give, but no harm in telling which corporate funded you and how much was the funds they gave you. I think that is a pretty standard practice, and it does not affect confidentiality in any case, because in CSR disclosure forms, all these details are anyway given.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Megha.
Megha, if I may add, we have been asked very often to share with new donors our reports of some earlier projects, and so the importance of reporting goes just beyond that one donor also. They like to see how we have reported out and how impact happened and what did we do.
Okay. There's one question from Poonam, and I think we could wrap up with this question. What is the best way to capture and show all the monthly activities that are being done during the project period to make the reports more appropriate?
So depends on what kind of frequency you have with the corporate. So if it is, if you are going to give a quarterly report anyway, then maybe the monthly discussion could be more of a call where you can give updates about your project. What have you achieved? Have you achieved your monthly targets or not? And it's good to also have all the documents in place. So, if you have a quarterly report frequency already set up, then maybe the monthly, cadence can be used for more of generic update and to talk about whether the project overall is going in the right direction or not. And, if there are any risks, what mitigation measures you have in place, etc. So monthly reports may be slightly high level, but when you go to the quarterly reports, they have to be much more detailed.
Thanks, Meela. Hope that answered your question, Poona. And yeah, I know we're out of time, but in case there are more questions, I think we'd be happy to please write to us at partnernetwork@satwa.co.in. I think we'd be happy to sort of answer all of your questions as well. We can collate that, share it with Megha as well as Deepika, and with their inputs shared with you. But thank you so much again, Megha, Deepika, for facilitating our session today. And we will be sharing the deck and the recording of the session with all the participants so that you all can refer to it. Yeah, just wrapping up our M&E series with this one. Please stay tuned for the next session, next webinar series on marketing and communications. And even regarding our platform that we did speak about, we will be sharing the registration link to register on the platform by early next week. So hoping to see you all register through the platform for our upcoming sessions. But thank you again, Deepika, Megha, and to all the participants as well. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me. Bye-bye. Good evening.
Bye.
Thank you.